folks. Good evening. This is Alex Gordon again, talking to you from London. You're on the Message Talk Show. Hey, guys, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Hey, this is the first time I'm doing it on a Wednesday night. Normally, it's on a Thursday morning, and the script works okay. But good evening, good night, and good morning, wherever you're watching from all over the world. This is a Message Talk Show coming to you from London with host Alex Gordon. We've been in some difficult times. We've been searching our souls, searching ourselves to persevere through this season. And through this season, we've had to find things to get ourselves busy, do things, become more entrepreneurial, and work on ourselves. And so doing, this evening, we have two very special guests on the show coming to you. And let me just bring them in. Say hi, good evening, folks. Say good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Hello. Hello.
Yes, we have Dr. Rochelle Carr and we have Dr. Roy Pope with us this evening, coming to talk to us about Black economics. Now, this is a conversation that we need to have and we need to keep having. It's not a conversation that belongs to any one person or any one race, but it needs to be had continually until we start to find solutions for our community. Do you agree with me, folks?
Yes. It needs to be something in our schools. It needs to be something in our homes. It needs to be something in our churches. It needs to happen all the time. So yes, it needs to happen.
Yes, I agree. This needs to be a consistent stream that's embedded throughout everything that we do, through all of those entities that Rochelle just mentioned.
Wow, so we're in agreement. So folks, hey, we're in agreement already. So let me just welcome you to the show. Let me just welcome you to the Message Talk Show. We believe that mission-centered, focused individuals, purpose-driven individuals are going to bring the solutions to the world that we live in. Entrepreneurs are going to bring the solutions. People who have a passion for what they do. And so on the Message Talk Show, we interview mission-centered and passionate individuals. We work with coaches. We work with consultants. We work with small business owners, just to help you get your message out. So if you have an idea, if it's something that's in the back of your mind, it all starts with speaking. It all starts with getting your message out. It all starts with standing up and being seen. And that's what we do on the Message Talk Show. So I'm welcoming you once more to the Message Talk Show. We broadcast normally on a Thursday, 11 o'clock. Hey, but tonight we're on a Wednesday, 8 p.m. And I think we're gonna start running this slot as well, 8 p.m. to interview. So welcome to the Message Talk Show. And tonight we're kicking off with Black Economics, the Intersection. And I drew a diagram. You know, I'm not very good at drawing, so it's very elementary. But I drew a diagram to try and get an understanding of what I would call the intersection. So let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So if you imagine, you can't see there, can you? Yeah, very slightly you can see the intersection. In the middle, something starting on one end, dipping in the middle and going up to the other side, and then the red line coming from the bottom. What I'm saying today is that in the UK, in terms of Black entrepreneurship, in terms of Black economics, we're starting at the bottom and rising. So when you're at the bottom, the only place you can go is up. That's the only place you can go.
That's true, yes.
And we believe that the Americans are way ahead of us. They're way ahead of us when it comes to Black economics. Is that true?
Well, I wouldn't say ahead. I would say that we're just implementing different strategies across the waters and trying to find our way.
Probably the conversation started a long time ago. Put it that way.
Yes.
The conversation started a long time ago.
Yes.
I was listening to some information from Dr. King, and they were talking about Dr. King. We know Dr. King for what I Have a Dream speech. We know him for social justice. But there was a point when Dr. King reached, and he asked the question, what's next? And economics was at the forefront of his mind as to where he was going to take the people next. But it never really manifested before they killed him. So there's a book I found, and a gentleman by the name of David Swanson wrote a book called Kingonomics.
Okay.
12 Principles of Kingonomics. So I've yet to indulge myself in that book and to hear what Dr. King was thinking before he died about economic for the Black community. So let's kick off this evening by asking the question, what do you understand? What's your definition of Black economics? Dr. Rochelle, what's your definition of Black economics? What's your thoughts there?
I don't think it's a concrete definition as to what is Black economics, but what I can say is that we have misconstrued between the difference of being rich and wealthy. And because of that, we've been caught in this trap of trying to keep up with the Joneses, and we're failing because we don't manifest our own internal Black economics. So we don't buy from each other. We don't stick together economically. We don't reinvest in our own Black communities, our Black stores, and there's a lot of things I believe that come with that, undergirding that we don't support one another. And so when I think of Black economics, I think of the fact that the more educated we've become, the less empowered we've become. And I stick to that because when I look at the 1960s, when I look at farmers, and when I look at people growing their own crops, selling to each other, building communities, the more educated we got from building economic wealth. We built riches, but we like the knowledge to sustain the wealth. So that's when I think of Black economics, that's what I think of.
Wow, the wealthier we've become, the more we have, the less we think of each other.
Yes.
The more selfish we become. What's your understanding there, Dr. Pope, Dr. Roy?
Well, going back and then just revisiting the definition of Black economics, I look at it from three different sides: the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services that are used and that are produced by the Black community and that are used by our own Black community along with others. So going back to what Dr. King talked about with economic power and those type things, we do have to look at trying to step up and take advantage of opportunities when it deals with the production and the distribution and the consumption of different goods and services. For example, when you look at the total population in the US, you have about 330 million. 14% of that is made up of the Black community. But when you look at the consumption of, let's say, hair care type products, the Black community spends an enormous amount, substantially more than 14%. If I'm not mistaken, it might be around 60%. So tying that back into the definition of what Black economics is, it's looking at those three components, but then actually producing products and things that are tied to the data, that are tied to where income can be generated and revenue can be generated.
So the big question is, are we producing what we're consuming? Are we just consuming other people's products?
We're just consuming.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We're just consuming, yes. I believe we're just consuming. I looked up a number. It says the Black community accounted for a combined 1.2 trillion in consumer spending in 2017, and it's projected to be 1.5 trillion by 2021. That's how much we could spend accounting for in the Black community. But how much of that money is coming back to us? Probably less than a fourth of it. And so we are, consumers, but what are we producing? I think Ward was saying that, even in Black hair care products, there are probably, I know 10 that, and I was just talking to a friend of mine the other night, 10 probably Black owned hair care products, stores that we own. And so when we are spending money in people, in places that we're getting no return, it's sad because it's like, a balloon with holes in it, the water's coming out. It doesn't contain it. And so we're losing on, economically as a Black community because I know when COVID here in Texas, when COVID let up a little bit and stores open, there was a line wrapped around the hair care store. And And I was like, how you are spending money instead of saving that $1,200 that we got, you would go in and buy $1,000 worth of hair that's 6 months. So it has to be education. We have to be re-educated on money, economics. We have to be re-educated on our spending. I think if you take a poll now, 1 out of 5 Black Americans have no money for retirement, no money for emergencies. And so COVID hit, and we are at the bottom of the barrel struggling because we had nothing saved.
Wow. I mean,
yeah.
and that's one of the things which ever since I started this conversation, I've thought about Black economics from the educational side, because if we're gonna build a community, if we're gonna build something that will last our community, it has to start with how we educate our people about certain things, about how they consume, about how they spend their money, about how to put an infrastructure into our community that builds. If you look at the Jewish community, if you look at the Asian community, certain parts of the Asian community, and the business infrastructure that they have around their religion, around their faith, it begs a question as to how comes we haven't somehow adopted that kind of framework that private enterprise feels everything we do. I'm just surprised that we don't have that understanding of private enterprise feeding everything we do. And therefore, some of the issues that we have in the UK is that the things that that are provided for in our community, and whenever the government gets involved to help us provide it, there comes a point when they decide that the funding is no longer required. And so the social enterprises are starved because the government says we're pulling the plug. So the education about private enterprise underpinning our community, educating and building our capacity to do things. Now, I'm not sure what's happened in America in terms of building people's capacity.
Well, you hit on a couple of different points there that I want to address. With the no funding issue or the funds drying up, that's something that we have to address. That's one of those barriers. When you look at statistics that are, whether you're examining the US or the UK, the Black community has a higher rate of being declined for a loan, for that financial access. So that's one of those barriers that needs to really be addressed. When you talk about us being more consumers, like Rochelle mentioned earlier, if the Black community could create entities, then they could keep those funds, that revenue within the community, because statistically, a large chain store has a 14% chance of maybe investing in that local community. Whereas if it's a community store, a smaller chain, then they have about a 55% chance of investing back in that community, creating that infrastructure. Addressing the educational aspect of it, I think that's an important piece that needs to be confronted. You need education that equips you with those basic tools on where you can go to find resources. For example, some people may not understand that there are professional networking opportunities out there. All you have to do is just Google it, or you have certain directories that you could go to. So there are a lot of different areas that we need to address to try to move some of these stumbling blocks out of the way. And we need to have some consensus on some identifiable points that we can all agree on to move forward. I know we can come up with a wish list of maybe 100, 150 things, but we need to focus on just a few core things that we can all collectively, the different entities that make up the Black community, can come together and we can push forward, whether it's the US or the UK.
You're asking almost impossible question there, aren't you? To ask me for entities to come together.
Yes.
Unless you're addressing self-interest, people just don't come together for those reasons. There's probably hubs created in our community for different things.
Right.
To try and get people to cross-pollinate is one of the most difficult things to ever do.
Yeah, I think it's a mistrust that's been so embedded into our DNA to continuously keep that separation. And we all have this misconception, some people, that, you know, if I buy black, it's subpar. It could be the same soap. It could be the same, you know, same brand, but it's just something that unfortunately in our DNA that stops us from, you know, coming together under the umbrella. You know, it could be many different tentacles under there, but just coming together to even invest in our own banks. There's 19 Black owned banks in the US. And if we're spending, you know, $1.5 trillion, why can't we invest in our own banks? Why can't we support our own? And I think in our DNA, that mistrust has been built in, and that we've allowed ourselves to succumb to the mistrust of Black economy, the Black economics, the Black businesses. And, you know, you hear people with these microaggressions. Our own people say, oh, I'm not going to hire a Black person because, you know, they don't do the right stuff. And so we've embedded those microaggressions, and we believe those microaggressions. And so therefore, you know, Black businesses suffer. The mom and pop business suffers because we won't invest into those businesses.
But if we understood the economic value that we bring to the marketplace, now imagine this: it's not just what we're spending. If you look at even the social enterprise side of what people they give, the services they give back to the community. If you look at what the church does in terms of its social action and what they give back to the community, and if you quantify all of that, if you were to quantify all of that, the economic value added is massive.
Yes. But is it taught? And that's the problem, is that there are certain pockets of people that know this. But as a general rule, the Black community is still, you know, this barrier, like, oh, you know, I'm not giving. It's an enslaved DNA. That's what I call it. And I think that until our mindset changes, and that's through education on every level, sometimes, you know, starting in the community, starting in the church, you know, our schools are not going to educate our Black children to be economically wealthy, knowledge. And so we have to give back to our communities to help educate those, that in order for us to be profitable in a sense that we are striving and living the American dream, we got to give back. And that giving back means educating people with that knowledge. And that's the piece. And starting at churches, you know, churches used to do that. We used to have financial seminars and financial this and economic empowerment. Now we just, you know, want to clap our hands and go to church. So we got to get back to the basis. That was one thing in the 80s and the 90s that was a theme of churches, getting back to the basis. And I think that's what we need to do now, is get back to educating our community on Black economics. What does that really mean to you, you know? And what does that mean to us as a, like you say, a social community, a church, a community center that's giving back?
Dr. Roy,
yes,
we have more education in the last probably 2 decades. This generation has been more educated than our parents has ever been. We've been to more institutions. So why have we somehow been starved of this education about our own community and how we can work together to build an infrastructure? Why have we been starved of that education?
Well, when you say starved, I look at it again, going back to those barriers. There's certain barriers that are there that we're going to have to look at pushing through. And it starts with churches buying in and educating us on the fundamentals of investing and retirement. Prime example, years ago, I didn't know anything about Rule 72. If you don't know about it, then feel free to Google it and look it up. But it talks about the amount of time it'll take for you to earn interest back on your money in investing. I didn't know a lot years ago about index funds. So having the education is one thing, which we're not fully getting, but then having situations where we can apply it and having doors that are being opened to us so that we can apply that knowledge and that those barriers aren't in the way. So there are a number of barriers that are hindering the Black community from mistrust between them, between us, from mistrust between countries. The Black community in the U.S. versus the Black community in the U.K. You know, there's so many cracks right now. We need to have a come together, a healing moment, and then just agree that we have to move forward somehow. But yeah, there has to be some core foundation that's in place.
Yeah, but okay, we need a healing moment. It's almost
Okay.
You see, what I'm trying to say here is the barriers that we have are some of the things that we're talking about. Because if you're looking for a healing moment, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. People today are not like the previous generation. I remember when my parents tell me stories of when they first came to the UK and the things they did to survive, where they lived, how they pooled their resources, how they went to work together, how they got each other jobs, how they helped each other to climb, how they threw partner to pool their funds to buy their first homes. Those are things that we will never see in this generation.
Because we become we are me selfish, like we stated first, a very selfish generation. The more we get, the less connected we become. The more educated we become, the less connected we are to our community. We don't, not all, but how many Black educated people are now going back to reinvest into the communities where they come from or that they were connected to? You know, I hear a lot of, people that, when I was a couple of years ago, got educated, they had to leave the home church because, I can't be around those people because now I'm educated. So that kind of enslaved mindset is tearing down the infrastructure of our community because we don't go back and invest once we are educated. Once we've become educated, we don't go back. Now we can't shop at the mom and pop stuff. We got to go over here. And it's nothing wrong if you got to spend it, but go back and reinvest that on the shoulders that you stood on to get to where that allowed you to get to where you are.
And you have to look at it from even a psychological standpoint. There are psychological restraints that are holding us back. One theory that we talk about quite a bit is Maslow's theory of needs. And at the base of the pyramid, it talks about addressing the physical, safety, food and shelter type needs of an individual. Then above that, you have the forming relationships and networks and trying to fulfill your professional goals and those type things. So if a person's basic needs aren't met, then we're not going to get them to the next level where they can see because they're in survival mode. They're just trying to survive day to day. And Alex, to point out something to you, just for example, a solution. One solution that I would always throw out is that, honestly, governments in the U.S., the city where I'm from, they allocate a certain percentage of the government contracts going toward minority companies, minority-owned companies. And that's one of those solutions that can help start the cycle of funneling that revenue into Black businesses.
No, I mean, that's true. That is true. I think we've talked about in the UK, government contracts going to minority community, and there's been training schemes to help companies build capacity to do that. But I'm not even the starting point for me. I'm referring to is that whole idea about Black entrepreneurship in our hearts, in our minds, embedded in our community in such a way that our first thought process is not so much the job anymore. It's how I'm going to build something, how I'm going to build. So 10, 15 years from now, we're building major corporations, but they started. Now think about it. Think about Microsoft. When did Microsoft started? When I was a young kid when Microsoft started back in 2000. I think it was early 2000. with Microsoft. And one of the things that Bill Gates did very well with Microsoft was to convince the business community that the product they were producing was the best in the market, and it wasn't at the time. There was Lotus Notes, there was Lotus, there was WordPerfect that was out there that secretaries were using quite well. And when Microsoft came out with their suite of products, their marketing was so good. Their marketing was so good that they convinced the business community that this is it. People ditched the products that we're using and turned to Microsoft in droves just to get on the, on that treadmill. And today, Microsoft is an entity you can't deal with. It's so big. I mean, from a long time they had cash reserves that the government didn't have. So what I'm saying is that the building a culture in our an entrepreneurship culture in our minds. So it means that when the day we start, we are penniless when we start, and that's not a problem. Yeah, we start. We'll pool to start.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll pool to make things happen, and we'll pool to drive it. So if we had that in our minds and in our hearts, it means we would have a lot more probably black beauty shops around, black hair care products around, black supermarkets. I've been told that the pound in the UK, I think it's within the Jewish community, a pound can circulate for 5 or 6 days in their community. The pound can circulate.
Wow.
In the black community, I'm told that the pound doesn't circulate 1 day before it goes outside.
That's probably the U.S. as well. That's us.
It
that's
is.
The US
It is.
as well. Yes. if a day in the U.S. Yeah.
And is that circulation that we're talking about of the provision of services that meet our basic needs so the money can turn in our community? How do we do that?
Again, I say education. And one of the things, when you were talking, I thought about when Sam Walton started Walmart. He asked all of his friends for $1 to start Walmart. And when he started Walmart, that's how he started it, by his friends investing $1. And so if we have that entrepreneurial mindset that, you know what, I want to start a business, the bank won't give me any money. So guess what? I'm going to go to all of my friends, and I'm going to my friends to ask for $1. And that's the thing we do. We try to ask for $100, $200, no, $1, and build on that. All of us know 1,000 people. They might not be your friends, but just think about if you get that $1,000 to start where you need to start, you can build on that. But we don't, again, it goes back to teaching people how to find those resources, not always going to the bank, because the bank probably won't give it to you because you have, you starting out, but going to those other resources that can help you. And then just starting with family and friends.
And then actually adding to that, just showing them that there are alternative paths to get to that point. When you look at what does it take, what's that DNA for an entrepreneur? One has to be passion, and you kind of have to instill that in a person and let them know that you have two roads to go down. One that will get you from point A to point B. There are no bumps in the road, but then you might take that entrepreneurial road and you might have some bumps, some ditches, potholes and everything. But you will get more return by going down that road, because then you'll build something and you'll be able to kind of model for other people. And starting our company, it grew. It wasn't the easiest thing to do. It took us some time to go down this road. It took us that passion driving us, but using just ourselves, for example, we didn't mind calling out to people or reaching out to people and just asking them, hey, can you help us with this? Or can you give us some advice? Help us identify these resources, areas, where things are that we can, and tools that we can use to make our company better. So yeah, you do have to have that passion, and it does go back to the education system.
Well,
or not even, because I said sometimes we can't depend on the education system, but educating ourselves, meaning,
Yeah.
I go back to the Black church being, or used to being, the hub of every resource that we needed. And I think that if we can get back to that space, not going back, but getting back to a space where we are able to help our people get to the spaces, helping them understand their purpose. And I think out of purpose comes passion. And out of passion comes the navigates us to the space of, if I want to go to school, if I want to go into this, introduce them to coding, introducing them to tech stuff, just introducing them to the things that are going to help them become self-sufficient. And I think those are the things that they're lacking. Looking at Maslow's law, is like, yeah, the basic needs, but even if I can't even help myself get to the basic need because I'm always depending on, government help, how do I break myself from that cycle? My grandmother was on this, my mom, so we're on, how do I help? And I think educating and helping people see that this whole world out here belongs to you. All you need is the resources, and then helping them get to those resources. And I think that's where the church has lost. And I go back to the church because that's my foundation, has lost its connection to the community and has failed us in Black economics. And I think I think about Dr. Vernon Johns, who was the pastor before MLK came to Dexter Avenue. He was like, y'all going over here buying all this stuff when you won't even buy from me. And he would bring all of his vegetables to the church. And after he would preach, he's like, I got vegetables for sale. And the uppity folks at the church, let's be real, were like, how dare you? You're the pastor of Dexter, Avenue Baptist Church. You sell. He said, but this is Black economics. You leave here and you want to go eat at a place that don't even want you. You got to go to the back door. But here is, and so I think that's the mindset that we still have, and we don't dream big enough anymore in order for us to live in that space of Black economics. We don't dream.
We don't dream anymore. We don't dream. Yeah. Oh my God! How do we get there? How do we get there? We don't dream anymore.
Yeah. Our children don't. We don't even tell our children to dream big anymore. We say stuff like, "Oh, one day you're gonna be president." How do I get there? Help them dream help them see they can be president, but how do they get there? What do they need to get there? I want to own my own business. Well, guess what? During the summer, you're going to have a lemonade stand because you got to start up somewhere to help them get there, to see that it's not just when I grow up, you can begin to do those things now. And I think we have to teach them that.
And I everything that you've applied to the church, my background being strong in education. So I take those same thoughts and apply them to the educational systems too, and say that they have to do those same things. We just can't let children come in the door, produce, and we're just dumping on them like they're robots, and without any critical thinking, without some meaningful learning, relevant skills that they can apply once they leave outside those doors. So it's an assembly line. When that child comes through that door, we have from grade 1 to grade 12, from KG or pre-KG to grade 12, to equip them with those skills that they need. So they should know about marketing. They should know about investing. These things should be embedded within the educational schemes. They should know about networking. They should know about just how to socially connect with people, and just a whole plethora of different things that they need. So I really harp on the educational system, saying that we need to do more, because that's the foundation of it. That's why it's there. It's there for the children.
Dr. Roy, I'm gonna get you to come to Texas to say that same message. Because in Texas, we only teach a test. And so outside of that, the sad part is that they don't have room to learn those things that they need to learn. And I taught third grade for a year, and I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore, because it's only about that test. It's only about the STAR test. And so they have no room to learn the fun things. I think I was in sixth grade and we invested in stocks. Sixth grade, we invested in stocks. And I was like, oh, I need to invest in stocks. I never got my returns. I think my teacher stole that money. But our whole class looked at the newspaper and we were taught how to look at stock and what does that mean? And that was sixth grade. But now, unfortunately, in our education system in Texas, that when January hit, everything ceases. It's reading, it's everything about that STAR, and that's all they're focused on. And that's the sad part, because our children lose out. Our young people lose out on learning how to live in a world that is always beating against them. And if we can really empower and educate them, like you said, with the tools to dream big, to look outside of the scope of where they are, we are now building a new generation and an army that's going to soar, but we have to get the education to retool itself to focus on, really educating the children and not making them, as you say, I feel, robots just to learn to take a test. And that's how it is in Texas. I can only, speak about Texas and this lovely STAR test that they take.
But do you realize that we're now going, there's another revolution that's happening right now, in the marketplace. And that revolution is taking us by storm, and that's to do with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence taking over basic tasks and routines around us. Next 10 years, some jobs are going to disappear altogether. Now, what COVID has done is helped to accelerate some things. So now we've realized that we don't have to work in the office anymore. We can work from home. Companies realize, okay, let's not invest in so many buildings. Let's get rid of those buildings and let workers work from home. Let's then dumb the tasks down and get the computer to start telling us what to do. There's a whole revolution that's happening that I think, are we part of that? Are we part of that?
Well, I can answer that and say, no. Is the educational system a part of that? Are they adjusting to, again, equip them with these new skills that they need to go in this, to operate within this remote setting? No, we need to. And if the church and the educational system could come together, and if we could trap them in between, and Rochelle, I think we're going to have to talk after this.
Yes.
but I think that we could really do some great things to adjust, because if we don't adjust, like you said, that AI, the AI being implemented and all of these new technologies and innovative things that are being done, the Black community will be left behind.
Yeah. And the thing about coding that, is the thing that's is behind the AI, and, because somebody has to code the computers to run, the machines to run. We are left out. We are left out. And I think that, if we begin, like, there are free coding classes. Do our community kids know that? Most of them don't, and so those, going back to those resources, and now you can do it online. You can have it online, but then some of our kids in our community don't even have computers. So it's like they're still missing those links to be able to get to that space that they need to get into. But again, even in COVID, we can have 10 children at the church. We have a big screen TV, spread them out. Hey, this is a coding class. It can happen. Those things can happen if we put our mindset, again, think bigger than what the box that we now are living in, and get to a place where we reinvest in ourselves. And we recognize that, we talk about the millennials, they're action. That's an action generation. And if we don't put them to action to do something, they're willing to work. They're willing to reach back and help the younger kids generation pull up, but we don't put them to action. They say, okay, don't put us to action. We'll go to action. We'll hit the streets. we got it. We'll hit the streets, but we need to put them to action where they can reach back and bring up the next generation and invest and empower them.
I think we're back where we started then, because you just mentioned that there's some young children at home who haven't even got the basic computers to do some of the things that we really do. And this is what I'm talking about: building infrastructure in our communities that gives us the tools. Get organizations, get companies to sponsor tools into our hands, into the young children's hands. Put it in their hands and help them with. You know what? I no longer talk about the church doing anything. I can't. History has proven and shown itself that, if I talk in that direction, I'm going to be beating my head against the wall. All right?
So you can't give up on the church. You can't give up on the Black church. It's going to rise again. I got to hold on to that. It has to find its way back to what it was created to do. It has to, because we are going to, I just believe that's the rebirth of Black economic power. And with people that are willing to dig in. And I think that there are pastors out there that even in COVID are saying, you know what, we got to reinvent ourselves. We got to redo our thought process. We got to think outside of the box, because now we got to look at church differently. And it's no longer, let me do business as usual. And so I can't, Alex, give up on the church. I can't give up on, no. There are churches that are doing great things, and there's some that you like, really, why are you still open? But getting back, because of the entity, I was talking to a couple of friends of mine that are pastor, and I was like, look, you need to get your 501c3, not the church 501, but you need to get the separate entity for a 501c3 so that you can start asking companies for money. You can start asking companies to reinvest into your neighborhood for computers. And so just even educating them, because they're like, oh, we the church, we tax exempt.
You see what you've caused, Dr. Rochelle? You see what you've caused? There's a member of the public has just said, don't give up on the church. Now, you have caused word to go out to say Alex has given up on the church. I didn't say I'm giving up on the church.
You just say you're not looking that way.
I didn't say I'm giving up on the church. My words is that I'm no longer asking the church to do certain things.
Well, I'm going to.
It's like,
but let me get on the side of the church too now, because my father was a pastor, so I have to defend my new friend here. But honestly, when you go back to look at the tools that we can put in their hands, and we talk about the lack of computers, just imagine how powerful it could be if a pastor of a church walked into a business, into a tech company, and said, could you donate 15 computers to my church? The company, of course, could use it as a tax write-off for the full price that it's worth. So that's a win-win situation for them. With going back to schools again too, they have to look at equipping students with those tools by inviting people to come into the building. If you don't have people that are there who can teach, who can educate them on those fundamental skills on coding or AI, there are plenty of businesses, no matter what country you're in, that there are always people that will be more than willing to come in and to interact with the students and freely just share their knowledge with them. They love doing things like that. But again, we have to look at taking advantage of that, and we have to think outside of the box. We have to dream big.
We have to dream bigger. As I said, I didn't say I gave up on the church.
But you turned a side eye on the church, and we want you to keep looking forward at the church.
I'm finding like-minded entrepreneurs who have a passion for changing the what's the word now? What's the word I'm looking for? Changing the message, changing the narrative that we have going on. And it's finding like-minded people who think that way and say, right, let's put our heads together and do this. Let's put our heads together and do that. Let's knock it. Let's do it. because then it doesn't become a committee that's deciding that this is going to happen. It's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people that says, right, let's do this. And when you do that, it happens. It makes it happen. When a committee then decides that this is going to take place, or the committee has to then get approval from someone else, so then, man, I'm 40 years has passed, and it still hasn't been done.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to. That's what I'm talking about. But are there any trends at the moment that you would say in the States that's assisting the thought process of Black economics? Are there trends of anything happening in the States?
Well, I know one thing that I would like to talk about is just this Black awakening now that's happening. I think that's very powerful. You can look on the news now and you'll see where I think I forgot the bank in the U.S., but they've committed to investing $1 billion into Black-owned banks. You have different companies that want to invest hundreds of $millions in this entity and that entity, and they want to do this for the Black community and that for the Black community. So that Black awakening, this is a tidal wave right now, and we should put ourselves in a situation where we should be able to ride that wave by taking advantage of these opportunities. That way, we can pull other people up. Some people might be at the lower level of that Maslow pyramid, and we might be a little bit higher. But us catching the wave with this Black awakening with it, because that's the major trend that's happening, I think globally, that's something that's really having an effect.
You see, you can only ride the wave of that trend if you have structure in place to take it on board. So if someone says, I've got £1 million, I've got $1 million that's going to give to a certain need in your community, if the community has not organized itself around those needs already, then it's almost impossible to take it on. And that's what I'm talking about. Building the infrastructure that makes us marketable, building the infrastructure that makes us able to do things at the touch of a button. That's what's missing.
And that's when you get people that, like you said, not necessarily the committee, but you get the 2 or 3 that are willing to begin against all odds, because then there's the 4 or 5 that say, well, let's get a committee together. The 2 or 3 just have to keep pushing against the grain to build that infrastructure. So when the dollars start pouring in, you can say, hey, committee, y'all still working. We're over here building. Come join us. And in joining us, that, we are going to continue building in this way. And I think that because people try to go back to the old way, well, let's get a president of the committee. Let's get no. We are moving forward, and this is the parameters, and this is how it's working, and we have to keep pushing that way.
Yeah.
Well, someone has just dropped another word and said, our church is our biggest asset. See, they're coming at me now. They're coming after me. These guys are coming after me now, man. You see what you've done? The church is our biggest asset. I've never said the church is not our biggest asset. The church is the biggest pool of resources. Yeah. It's the biggest pool of professional people across the country. It's the biggest pool of educated professionals that can make things happen. Yeah. It's the biggest pool of educators. It's the biggest pool of financiers. But it's not the game changer. Yeah. Black Lives Matter was not church people.
Yeah, at all.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
The game changers are not coming from church anymore. Dr. Martin Luther King's era passed, and it's forgotten in that sense, in terms of bringing that kind of change. And that's why I said I no longer look in that direction, because I'm demanding too much and raising expectations too high that can't be served.
But I think it can be served, Alex. I think that's the key. I think that, and here was Black Lives Matter has raised the bar.
Yes.
And I think it has put a light on the Black church for not doing what the Black church said it was doing.
Okay, we must also agree that not everything that Black Lives Matter stands for and does that we agree with.
No,
okay?
No.
Because there's some things that we don't necessarily agree with.
Yes.
But in terms of the social action, in terms of the mobilizing the mass audience across the world, they certainly have succeeded in doing that. And companies, as a result of that, companies have come forward, opening their bank accounts and their pockets.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying.
What
and
can we
shined
do?
a light, yes. And it shined a light on the responsibility of what the church has lacked, is not doing, because the church has got comfortable in not doing and raising the bar to call a social action, And so Dr. Oh my God, William Barber in the U.S. right now is, I don't call him people say he's the new Martin Luther King. I don't call him that. He is Dr. William Barber, and he is calling Poor People's Campaign, calling together massive movements of all people to come together in this social structure, to rise up, not to change policies. And that's the key too, to change policies so people are treated equally, people are treated fairly. And and he did it with the movement of the church. Movement of churches gathering together. And so all of those entities that are now making a grand shift, it's a point where the wave of money that is coming on Business Open Doors, but as we push that wave, we have to make them honest. Not that because eventually the wave comes down. And when the wave comes down, are you still going to invest? When it's now quiet again, are you still going to invest? When it's no longer, rioting, marching in the street, not the rioting part, marching in the street, are you still going to invest? Do I need to get your attention in a way that I am, screaming and shouting, or can we come to the table and have a conversation? And so that's the part of, the wave is good. I told a lot of my friends, go apply for some jobs right now. You Black and educated, you'll get in the door. In some companies that wouldn't have hired you a year ago. Go apply, they will hire you right now. And you got to, but I think that when the wave comes down and now the water is back to normal again, we got to keep those individuals honest. We have to keep them still investing. Not turn a deaf ear like, oh, everything's quiet now, we can go back to normal. No, we have to keep the mirror up to their face.
Okay.
And Alex, you mentioned earlier about opening the floodgates monetarily. But that's good what businesses are doing, but it goes back again to that educational aspect of it. They have to know, if you're giving me this large check, and I don't know the fundamentals of business or what to do with it, then that's just a wasted chance. So, so we're going to have to be educated again, going back to that statement that you mentioned. And piggybacking on what Rochelle said, you only need a few people. You don't have to wait until you have a committee, 2 or 3. All of the things that I've personally learned in marketing, I wish I had learned previously. This last year and a half to 2 years has been an awakening experience for me with just these different marketing tools and strategies that are out there. So I'm going to look at reaching out and passing those on to other people. I'm actually connected with a couple of businesses now, trying to help them along the way on either designing a website or just sharing some marketing strategies. So you have to, don't wait until you have that full committee of 20 or 30 people. It only takes 1 or 2.
Wow. You see, I was interviewing a lady the other day by the name of Dawn Grant, and she's got a company called Black Economics in the UK. I think it's been going for about 10 years now. And one of the things that she was talking about venture capitals looking for businesses to invest in. Venture capitals looking to invest in tech companies, and that, tech companies don't necessarily have to make money or make a profit for them to invest in them. So if you think about it, for even a company to invest in you, you have to be tech ready. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be. But I just, when I think about venture capitalists, nothing against that segment. But I really think that you need to look at how you can go about it a different kind of way, because you don't want to have people on your board of your company that they may not have that passion, they may not have that vision, they may not necessarily understand what you're doing. They're just going to tell you, do this, do that, do this, do that, because you've taken money from them. So I'm really standoffish when it comes to venture capitalists, just my personal opinion. But there are plenty of other ways that you can look at trying to go about financing your business. You can reach out to different minority business sectors. You can reach out to just like, for example, in the U.S., the SBA, the Business Association. You can find other avenues to try to fund it instead of going down that traditional venture capitalist avenue.
Okay, now give me 3 things each. What 3 things do you think we could adapt and use in the UK to help us in our quest, in our Black entrepreneurship quest? What 3 things do you think we could adapt and use in the UK?
Move. No, I'm just joking. We all just move on a place together. Dr. Rob, I'll let you go first on that. I will let you go first.
One thing that comes to my mind is that there needs to be a standard entrepreneurial class that's been embedded, that's being taught on the high school level, the middle, and the elementary level. So it needs to be scaffolded. So you need to look at a very structured, standard type entrepreneurial class that's being taught. And then I want to even take that a step further and say, maybe even look at rolling out a standard program, or anybody could take that on, creating a standard program that churches could use. And they could just pull resources out, and then they can work with students that are coming. That'll give them some buy-in on that. Now, from a third point of view, something that they could look at implementing there, pull the walls down a little bit more. Stop separating yourself from your neighbor. Start networking more, because that's the most powerful tool. If you don't start networking, you're going to be walking blind, and you're going to need a lot of help along this journey. So just pull those defenses down a little bit and open yourself up, and if you don't have just realize you're not perfect. If you don't have a good day, just dust yourself off and know that you'll have the next day to do a little bit better. But the first 2 with those standard classes in the school systems, and then standard classes that churches or toolkits that churches could use.
Wow. Pull down the walls. Open up yourself. Start networking more. Network with a purpose.
Yes.
Network with a purpose. Connect with people. Now, while you were talking, somebody just threw this comment up. And let me show you what they've said. The question is, while we are discussing this, what are the 3 of you going to do to make one change starting today? What are the 3 of you? Now, that's a big one, isn't it? What are the 3 of you going to do? Yes. So we can't even have the discussion anymore, But I know for sure that Dr. Rochelle Carr, you're involved in empowerment, yeah?
Yes.
You're involved in training and developing, building people's capacity. Tell us some of the things so this our learned friend out there can hear what you're already doing. Yes.
So at Path Forward Empowerment, some of the things that we do is we look at your purpose, and I believe that in understanding your purpose, connected with your passion, that you're able to again begin to dream again, begin to navigate yourself to the places that you would like to be. And so what I do is help you first sit down to just have a conversation. And I think that's the thing, is like allow people to talk about, what did you dream about when you were 10? What did you want to be when you grew up? What did you want to do? And when people start to unlock all of the barriers that they have put up in their lives, and we start chipping away at those things, you begin to see the frowns turn into smiles. You begin to see the darkness go away from their eyes because they now are unlocking their passion. And then I teach them how to live in their passion, how to operate in their passion. And beyond that, I connect them to the resources. I had a lady that wanted to start a business. She didn't know how to do it. She said, this has been a dream of mine since I was little. So I connected her to a small business development center here. It's free. They literally teach you how to do your whole entire business plan for free. And then give you the resources, connect you to companies that will help you invest in you. And so those are the things, like once you get people to understand their purpose and unlock and move all those barriers, then people are able to then take that, start their business, and then go back to their community, help their community, each one reach one. And once we begin to do that, then we're able to grow and bring people back to a place where they are living their full purpose and living their full lives. And so I always say, steps to being and living your best life. And that's in understanding and unlocking your purpose what's inside. That was stamped on your DNA when you were created. It's just sometimes we have to dig it out, dig it from the grave and, give it life again, give those dry bones some life. And that's the Path Forward Empowerment. That's what we do. We give your purpose life again so that you can go reach somebody else and help somebody else.
Wow.
And just to share something with you that I'm doing, that our company is doing. Not too long ago, we were exposed to some students from Morehouse. We met them. These are some college students that majored in business, finance, accounting, and myself, along with some other business owners, we were able to share with them some things that you need to do, some skills, giving them some suggestions. But I was so excited because I felt their energy. They were hungry for it. We talked during the lunch session, we talked afterwards, and as a matter of fact, a couple of them even reached out to me on LinkedIn. Now we're actually going back and forth on LinkedIn because they're really, and these are sophomores and juniors, so they're really excited about starting their own businesses. And they were asking, okay, where can I get this resource from? Where can I do that? So that really helped me to kind of iron out my mentoring skills with these college students. And I'm looking at continuing that with them. Not only the students that I've connected with on LinkedIn, but with any additional students that meet with us in that same platform.
Wow. So, and you're talking about Ed Guru?
Yes, I'm talking about Ed Guru. Yes. Yeah. And we were able to talk about marketing strategies. We've talked about, how to come up with your unique selling points for your product, how to add value. It was an entrepreneurial class. That's basically what it was. But it was from the hard knocks, like lessons that we've learned along this journey. So we were able to share that with them. So we're excited about that, and we're looking at doing more of that.
Wow. So I'm going to go back to Dr. Rochelle, because you never told us your three things, Dr. Wright told us his three things, but
I'm ready.
Your three things, Yeah, so, we're waiting for yours.
Okay. So my first thing is, and I'm going to piggyback, is networking. Connect with people that are already doing what you want to do. And so if you I always say, if you want to make $1 million, hang out with people that already have $1 million. If you're starting a business, hang out with people that have successful business. You don't want to learn from the struggler. They're still struggling. Now, if they struggle and made it, yes. But if they still in the struggle, in the quicksand, they're just going to bring you down too. So you want to network with like-minded people that are where you want to be successful. The second thing is, and I'm going back to the church, Alex, that I have to educate people from the standpoint of the church and community. And I believe that, yes. And I believe that if we create a curriculum a nation. I mean, I won't even plug his name, but we have used his path to money in Black church, and folks still broke. We have to have something that's created for the psychological mindset of Black people. And if we can build some type of, Dr. Roy and we gonna do this thing. I already see it now. We're gonna build a curriculum that helps Black people understand money from a different point of view, and how then to grow money from a different point of view. And we have to sometimes be selfish with teaching our own how to grow money. We can't use, it was an author did something a couple of years on building a church. It wasn't for us. It was for a small population in a rich neighborhood that didn't look like us. So we have to first network. Number two, build a curriculum that's for us, by us, so that we can empower us. The third thing is, I'm just gonna have to say this, we're gonna have to pray. We just gonna have to get back to the basis, and we're gonna have to, just come together for a revival, a nationwide revival on Black economics. And we're gonna have to build from there, that we come together as a people and stop allowing other people to, make us crabs and pull each other down. We just have to, we're gonna have to find a way that we don't have to all agree. We can disagree without being disagreeable. We can disagree without running and selling our brothers and sisters out. But we have to come together, be able to come together and be able to build and be able to grow. So those are three.
That last point you made is so powerful, because as a kid, I used to say my mom prayed too much. Every time I said my mom, she's praying. Man, why are you praying so much for, man? Why are you praying so much for? And when I look back at my parents' life and the simple life they led, they weren't well-educated people. They were working class. They came to this country. They worked hard. And after 20 years, returned to the Caribbean and took me with them. Yeah? It was an education in itself, just going to the Caribbean to live. But what they were able to do with far less than what we have today far outstrips what we have achieved as a generation, because we have so much at our disposal, so many tools, so much more, but yet still something impedes us, something holds us back, something stops us, something slows our tracks down, something affects our minds, and so we're not where we should be or ought to be. And that's, we're talking about education, we're talking about all these different things. So I agree with you there, Rochelle. We have to pray. We have to pray. I agree with you there 100%. All right?
Good answer. Good answer, Alex.
So do we get your three? Do we get your three?
Sorry?
Alex, did we get your three?
Oh, my three. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't hear them.
I didn't hear his three either. Yeah, I didn't hear his three.
Here's my number one. And this is where I start all the time. We have to keep the conversation going. Yeah?
Yes.
When the conversation stops, everything stops. When the conversation doesn't take place, everything stops. So we said ourselves a while ago that the church kind of slowed down or forgot about what it was there to do in the first place, because the conversation's not being had. The conversation's not being entertained. And that's why I run the Message Talk Show. I'm into conversing. I'm into the conversation. I'm into getting inspired people and mission-centered people to come out and tell us how they're impacting the world. And by you sharing your story about how you're impacting the world in the USA, by Dr. Roy sharing his story, others out there think, wow, I can do that too. I can do that too. I remember the first time I got up and spoke in a network meeting, about 10 years ago. I had written a book called What Is Your Dream? And I wrote that book because I was involved in men's ministry inside my church, all right? And you know what? You cannot get men to do anything they don't want to do. Go and get men. I had all these wives coming to me and telling me what I should be doing with the men. All these wives telling me what I should do with the men, yeah? And you can't get a guy to do anything he doesn't want to do. So I wrote a book called What Is Your Dream? And every time I opened my mouth, all I talked about was dreams. Your dream. What is your dream? Where are you going? We ran boot camps about dreams. We took young boys away on rites of passage weeks into the countryside in open air just to give them a different way of life. We invited the army, we invited the soldiers, we invited the police, we invited government officers come in and talk to these young boys about their lives, about where they're going, and about what they want to do. And at the end of the week, we will have a ceremony, they'd graduate, and some of the stories are tremendous about what they've gone on to do. Tears in their eyes saying, guys had never spoken to us like that before. We've never had that kind of attention on us as boys because of the families they're coming from. So my heart is always in the conversation and the message and the talking, because that's where it all starts. It starts with the message, it starts with the speak, and then help to mobilize it and carry it further. That's number one point. My second point is I agree with you all. Networking. And that's what that's what we're doing here. Through the Message Talk Show, we connected. We never knew each other from atoms. We never knew each other. You guys are what, 10,000 miles away from me? You're 10,000 miles away from me. But because of putting a tool out there and because of constantly delivering and talking, our paths cross. Yeah? And nothing happens by accident. Nothing happens by accident. Our paths crossed, and here we're conversing, we're talking, we're sharing our minds, we're opening our hearts to something bigger and talking about and dreaming bigger than where we are right now. And my third one is where I started, and I agree with you. We have to pray.
There he is.
We cannot do this on our own. We cannot do this by ourselves. We cannot do this all by ourselves. We have to do what we have to do, and we have to ask the man above to do what he has to do. And when the two connects, we will change people's hearts and change people's minds. But there was a question that came up while you were speaking, and let me just throw it out to you. It says, when the mindset of Black people and economics collide, what will that $1 million do for us through us?
Mm.
What will the $1 million do for us? $1 million can do a lot, but if the people's minds aren't ready and prepared and not educated,
yes.
they're gonna eat the money.
Yes,
they're gonna eat the seed.
Yeah, and we saw that with our $1,200 stimulus checks during COVID-19. I mean, it was, and unfortunately, you can tell when we've gotten a little money, because we bought a 60-inch TV, the 72-inch TV, and we got 6 pairs of Nikes in the back, and so our mindset has to change, and it goes back. And I know this is like a broken record, but we got to be re-educated on how to save, how to invest. Well, re-educated on how to, those that know, and educate those that do not know how to save, how to reinvest. You talk to young people sometime, and it's like, okay, I want you to take this 10%. It's $1. Take 10%. I want you to give it over here. I want you to save 10%, and the rest is yours. And they're like, 10%. Then I only have. If you can do it from $1, you teach it from $1. Then when they get $100, they're able to do it. So it's mindset change, and it's re-educated, and it's educated. And so those are the things that, we just have to begin to do. And, again, it was so many people caught in the COVID-19, not even having some savings, and you lost your job, and, that's just it. You don't have $400, $1,000. You don't have 2 months of rent saved. You are living from paycheck to paycheck. But if we are able to educate people how to save from $1, again, just save from $1, teach them that. And then I think that's easier to chew on than trying to teach somebody to save from 100. And I think that's why I said creating a curriculum for us, by us, to help us do what we need to do to grow our communities.
And
so
education.
Dr. Roy, you and I.
Yes. We're agreeing here. We're already connected. Yes. and, and, and education and education exposure. That's where it's at.
Mhm.
Rochelle's talking about education. Alex, you're talking about exposure, and I believe in both of those. The more you expose people to think big, to dream big, to the possibilities that are out there outside of their communities, the things that they can accomplish and that they can bring back to their communities. You're instilling that passion in them. You're creating that purpose that will lead to that passion that will produce that product.
That's
Uh,
it.
and I believe that now. And Nelson Mandela, I was thinking about a quote. He talked about the power of education. If you educate a person, then that they can change the landscape. So I truly, that's one person that I respect because of what he's accomplished in his lifetime. So I want to, just talk about that again and reiterate that educating ourselves and educating others is really important. But make sure that we're not normal. We don't have to fit in. Break out. Break away from who
Yes.
you need to break away from. Don't be that normal person. Maya Angelou talked about trying to fit in and talked about, she mentioned that if you're always trying to be normal, you'll never know how great you can be. So don't fit into that normal box just because, you're in that situation. Reach across the aisle, connect with people that you may not connect with, be hungry for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here we have this. We have a fan person out there feeding us with information. The person has now said education and exposure equals no limits. He's agreed with you.
That's love. Yes.
Exactly.
Education and exposure equals no limits. It lifts the lid off.
Yes.
It lifts the lid off.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of this saying that we've heard over the years. We can't give people fish. We need to teach them how to fish. And once we give you the equipment to fish with, then you're able to do it. The limits are off. The limits are off. And so we can no longer just give you a fish, but we have to be responsible enough to teach you the fish and give you the things you need to fish with. That's the other part of that. I give you the fishing pole, all of that stuff. So then now you can take the limits off. And you can fish whenever you want in whatever waters you go to.
Wherever you want.
Whatever you want.
So what are some of the success stories that you guys have had in the States of entrepreneurship, black entrepreneurs, black doing quite well from things they've built from scratch? What are some of the success stories you've had?
Trying to think of this guy's name. I can't think. He's a investor, and I thought I wrote his name down, but and he's like one. I think I want to say he's number 2, number 3, but he's a black investor and does all the stock market and stuff. And he is, and I think he's taught in Morehouse, but I cannot think of his name right now. He's, he was in the shadow for a long time. You never knew who he was, and then. I don't know what happened that he came forward and he was like, yeah, that's me. I can't think of his name right now. But to me, he was a success story because he didn't know anything about the stock market. He was, I think, self-taught and is now one of the wealthiest black men in America and probably beyond. But I cannot think of his name. But
I'm thinking of a young lady. She works for Amazon now. She works for the artificial intelligence department there, and she is from Mississippi. She actually recently she wants to bring a tech hub to Mississippi, which would be the first tech hub there. Young lady that's 32, 33 maybe, and she had a hard time getting loans. As I was reading a story, she went 9 months down to almost to the end of getting a loan approved, and then they pulled the rug right from under her. But she was able to find creative ways to still finance the purchase of multiple properties, and this is for a deal that's valued at between $15 to $20 million.
Wow, amazing. Well, the success story I'm going to share with you today is something that happened in my own household. In around about June time, I follow a guy in America called Russell Brunson, ClickFunnels. So I follow him very dearly because of his marketing ability. I really like it, and how he delivers his message. So he had a conference online, he called it Two Comma Club Live. He normally has that every year, but this time, because of COVID, he had it online. And he offered, he said, I think it was £150, but if you didn't think you got value, you didn't have to pay. All right? You didn't have to pay if you didn't think you got value. If you got value, you paid. If you didn't, you got value. So I invited my son to attend with me from the comfort of our house. I think it was 4,000 people turned up to this seminar. So my son watched some of the videos, and his head got stuck in what he saw. After the conference, he bought a subscription to ClickFunnels, and then he bought Expert Secrets, he bought Traffic Secrets, and he bought .com Secrets. These are all books written by Russell Brunson in the States. And for 2 weeks, he consumed those books and built a funnel on his own. He went and got his friends and started a company, to start marketing using the funnels. So he was having meetings in his boardroom, so to speak. So he built a funnel, and he went and learned. I had a course that I did last year called Facebook Ads course. So I gave him access to it, and he went and learned Facebook ads to drive traffic to his site. Okay. Then he said that wasn't enough. He said, okay, I need to do something else. And there's a guy that he came across called Samuel Leeds. Samuel Leeds does property in the UK in a mass scale and teaches entrepreneurs how to do property. And he went and consumed videos from Samuel Leeds about property. And then after that, he went and bought the course to do property. It cost him £1,000. Yeah, he's 20 this year. £1,000. He bought the course and sat down and did the course with him and his 3 mates about property. Then he took the script and telephoned an estate agent to test that the script works. When he rang the estate agent said to him, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't deal with you. I'll have to refer you to my manager because this is above me, what you're saying." Yeah? And he tested the script, and the script worked. And then he started sourcing clients for what he was doing, sourcing deals. He picked up a client who gave him 4 properties and said, "I'd like you to fill those 4 properties with clients for me." This is going from no information to just information in the space of 30 days as an entrepreneur. I was just amazed of how he consumed the information and applied it so quickly. Applied it and made it work. When you say no limits, education and exposure, you get educated, you get exposed to different ways of doing things, and suddenly the limits are gone. They're holding you back from doing anything you want to do. And that was coming from my own household, and I was just amazed. I think, wow.
That's awesome.
Now, hey,
the problem I have now, every video he watches, he wants me to watch it as well.
Congratulations, Dad.
Yes.
Sorry?
Congrats.
Congrats to you.
Now that I was just amazed. I was taken back when that happened, and I thought, wow, there's a generation out there who can consume information so fast, far quicker than we can consume the information. So if we just find a way to help that generation take on board the challenges of today and show them how to do things, they will far outstrip what we're doing. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree.
So,
Yes.
In the final close, we're only supposed to go for 1 hour, for 30 minutes. It is now, we're now 1 hour, hour and a half of conversation. Is there Dr. Roy, is there a word you'd like to give the community right now? As I said to you today, 7 million people are watching this show across the world today. Is there a word that you'd like to impart to the community right now?
I like to close with this for those 7 million viewers that are out there. Going back to Zig Ziglar, he talked about to get to where you want to be, help somebody get to where they want to be. Give to them. It'll come back to you either through a pat on the back. You never know, they might want to do a business deal with you, whatever. But look beyond just serving yourself. Make sure that you are giving back. No matter how small, no matter how large, you don't have to take large steps. Just give back and help somebody along the way. Change somebody's mindset.
Change somebody's mindset. Help somebody along the way and change someone's mindset with what you have to offer.
Yes.
So, what have you got to say in your final word?
Whew. Your purpose was stamped on your DNA when you were born. It's connected to your passion that it will eventually lead to your production of whatever and your connection to where you want to be. And I would love for you to take some time today to sit along, to take some deep breaths and dig deep to say, what was I created for? And how am I going to get there? And if you don't have any idea of how to connect with someone that can help you get to that space, because we were all created to do something great in the space in which we were created for. And the opportunity for you to do that now is now. And so step out in your passion, in your purpose, live it out in your passion, and produce what you were created to produce.
Produce what you're able to produce. Now, you mentioned that you had an event coming up.
Yes.
An event?
Yes. I am doing a one-day virtual deep dive, finding your purpose from within, practical steps to living your best life and removing the clutter. It's only for 30 people because we are going to do, when you walk away, you will have steps, you will have resources to understanding your purpose and why you were created, why you were here, and how then to activate that purpose, how to live in your purpose, and how to, whatever it is that you believe you were created to do, we're going to help you in that seminar. It's a workshop. I'm not lecturing for 3 hours. I have people that are guests that will be on that are going to talk to you about where they are and how they, understood their passion. For the Message Talk Show, if you will go to the website and put in Purpose 2020, I will give you $100 off just because you are part of this 2 million listening audience. But remember, it's only 30 seats, 30 seats. But Purpose, all caps, Purpose 2020, and $100 off of your registration. Would love to have you for that one day, 9 to 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, U.S. time. But would love for you to join us and tell your friends, tell your family, tell somebody you know that is struggling with understanding their purpose to be on board. Thank you.
Wow. Folks, it's been great having you guys on the show today. The talk has been powerful, the information shared, and I'm sure that somebody has been listening. 7 million people have been listening to everybody. Dr. Roy, I'm not sure if you got an event coming up or anything that you want to promote now. I didn't ask you.
No, right now we're just
okay.
No specific events, just rolling out Ed Guru, and just look for some life strategy sessions along the way, some marketing coming from us. We'll have some events maybe next month.
Okay. I just had a word from the community here that says Dr. Nashil Cephas bought 12 acres for Tech Hub in Jackson, Mississippi. Just
yep.
Of successes that's happened around, yeah?
Yep, correct. That is the young lady.
Yes.
And then Pam Thompson says purpose, passion, and production.
Production.
She summarized it all for us. Purpose, passion, and production. But she's forgot the one thing: prayer.
Prayer.
Hey, she's been having a go at me. She's forgotten the one thing. I want to thank you guys for coming on the show today. I want to thank you for participating in this event today, this evening. And folks from out there, the Message Talk Show, I want to thank you also for being with us on the Message Talk Show for the past hour and a half, sharing, listening, and believing what's going to take place, believing that we have the power to change our lives. We can do anything we put our minds to. All we have to do is apply ourselves and do it. Now, before I go, there was 2 books I wanted to share with everyone that you should be getting your hands on right now. It's Black History Month, and these 2 books are called 100 Great Black Britons, and the other one is called Black and British by David Olusoga, and I think the other one was done by Mr. Gilroy. Get your hands on these books. It's Black History Month in the UK, and therefore we should be celebrating these guys and what they're pushing out, getting those books into our schools and celebrating our people. So I want to thank you for tuning into the show. And before I go, I need to go to our sponsor. You know, all this time I forgot to go to the sponsor. I enjoyed the conversation so much, I forgot to go to the sponsor of the show. The sponsor is going to sack me. Can you believe that? Now let me go to the sponsor before we disappear.
You are listening to the Message Talk Show and podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and podcast with host Alex Gordon.
And would you believe it? Someone else has posted again. Oh, someone else has posted. Someone else has posted again. Okay, Pam has said it goes without saying, prayer. It goes without saying. You have to say it. You have to say it. You can't just assume it, my sister. You have to say it. And this Jackie Harris says thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you for being here today. And I hope you also have time well spent. Wow. Would you say time is well spent, guys?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's been wonderful. Been wonderful. Good information sharing and forming these networks.
Yes.
Amazing stuff. And just finding where the hearts are around the world.
Yes.
Because, you know, as you said, passionate individuals are going to change the world, whether they're in church or not. We're going to connect them all up. We're going to connect the dots across the world and work on this. And it's one day before I die, I'll be walking with my stick and saying, I did it! I did it! I did it! One day I said I could do it. I was part of the program. I was part of the program.
Not the committee, but the program. There you go. Not the committee, but the program. Yes.
I was part of the program. So I'm just going to say goodbye now. Say goodbye to the audience. And to say goodbye, I tune out with one of my tunes again. You know, I like producing stuff, so you know, this is my kind of pet project all the time. So let me just write one of my shows. Miss the show, you got to be on this show. Thank you, folks, for tuning in, and I will see you again soon on the Message Talk Show, Thursday, 11 o'clock. Tune in. I'll be back.